What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. This is Undefined with Drew and Wendell, and we have a special guest with us this time, Awilda Rivera.
Hi.
Thanks for being on the show with us.
Thanks for having me.
You're totally welcome. So tell them a little bit about what you do, Awilda.
I'm a spiritual counselor, medium, shaman, and I also do psychic work. But my main goal is to just help people heal in whatever way necessary. So whether I'm teaching a class, facilitating meditation, doing a spiritual reading, or doing an energy healing, whether it's full spectrum or Reiki, I'm just a vessel for healing and change. So that's pretty much what I do.
Very interesting.
That
very
sounds
cool.
pretty special.
Yeah. Why don't you remind everybody what you do, Drew?
Oh, hi, Drew. I love that you call me Drew.
I love it.
Not many people who call me Drew in my life, but I love it. So I guess I'm, I suppose, an old school medium, as from the English sort of way of thinking about things. See dead people, talk to them, and try and pass messages on of continuous love, really, and trying to bring some understanding about that life does go on, is continuous, and basically we all are saved, really, in a way.
Very cool. Very cool.
Simple, man.
And I'm a writer. I'm also an inspirer, a life consultant, a spiritual counselor. So in many different ways, I work to also help and heal others, one person at a time or in the collective. However we can reach people with the healing message of unconditional love. I think that we all try in our own special way, right?
Well, the collective.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to the first Wendell Hospital.
Oh, boy. So the topic of today is the top 5 regrets of the dying.
Well,
And this was as conducted, as reported by a survey conducted at multiple hospice cares across America. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of talk to you guys about the top 5 regrets of the dying and talk a little bit about what they mean to us and how we can prevent ourselves from having those same regrets in our lives. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's an excellent topic.
yeah.
I actually, as a child, had a lot of experience in hospice cares. I had a close aunt to me who lived in an AIDS hospice, and I spent a lot of time there, so I saw a lot of people in hospice as a youth.
Wow.
Say that one more time.
Sorry,
Yeah, I think we
went
got
by.
crazy.
No,
Sound like
that's
a
all right.
spaceship. Or something.
No, I was just saying that this topic actually is close to my heart because as a child of 7, 8, and 9, I spent a lot of time at a really well-known hospice in New York called Bailey House, which is a hospice specifically for people affected with HIV/AIDS. My aunt was a resident there, and I spent pretty much 2 summers connecting with the wonderful people that lived at Bailey House that were in effect in hospice care. So
Wow.
Very cool.
That sounds amazing. How old were you?
I was 7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, 9. Jeez, that must have had quite a substantial effect on you. Did you see, was people dying around you?
Yeah,
as well?
there were people. I mean, I would literally hang out with my aunt in her hospital bed, like she would have her monitors and stuff, and I'd be
Wow.
kind of like snuggled
she
up next to her. Yeah, she
Oh, I
was.
thought
She
you were.
was HIV positive,
Jeez,
and
wow.
she was a resident.
Yeah.
It's funny because I actually one time I got sick while I was there, and I had to be rushed to the hospital, and my aunt clearly couldn't go with me because she had HIV, so that's the last place she could go because she could get sick so easily. But the funny thing is that the people at Bailey House were like, so you would not have thought that they were all sick the way that they were taking care of me. They were so focused on making sure I was okay and that like I got to the hospital quickly that you would have never realized that they were actually all
So what country
in
was that
transit.
in?
This was in Manhattan.
Oh, Manhattan. Oh, right.
Yeah, in the Lower East. In Greenwich Village. Bailey House is on Christopher Street, off of Christopher and Hudson.
Oh, wow. What a way to be brought up as a young
Yeah, it's a cool,
person, man. That's
cool
really-
perspective.
So
to
I've learned a
gain.
bit about where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, that's such a deep effect.
So then, I guess what do you? So based on your experience, what do you think about regret number 5? The regret number 5 is, I wish that I had let myself be happier. So how has your experience in the hospice care or in your own life, how does your experience help you understand how this could be a top 5 regret for people?
Absolutely. I think that's so profound, because in that statement, I wish I would have let myself be happier. Right there, if we dissect that statement, okay, when they say let myself, that speaks to the person knowing that there were times where they had made a choice to not be happy, or they had made a choice to remain sad. And the thing that, that really speaks to me, because at Bailey House, something that I noticed was that everyone that was there was really trying to cherish every single moment. So whether they were upstairs playing billiards or just sitting watching TV in their room, everyone was trying to have the most joyous moments possible, because there was an awareness of the finiteness of this body, and the fact that they could see the end of this vessel.
That's right.
And I definitely have to say that in my own reality, that I experienced that as a kid. So, unfortunately, I still had my teenage years to go, where we often forget a lot of the things that we know as children that help us to be better, if you will. And I definitely have to say that allowing myself to be happier is something that I've become more and more acutely aware of over the last probably 4 or 5 years, because it's something that I realize that I have to make a choice to, when my vibration gets low or down, to kind of right that ship, to bring it back to a place of positive, because this life is just about using the finite to reach the infinite. And so, sadness is very finite and joy is very infinite. Yeah. So if you just kind of remind yourself of that, it helps you, or at least it helps me to transition.
Interesting.
I wish I let myself. So that sort of infers that most people think they didn't let themselves be happier, or there was some barrier in the way, something that was
it would have to be them. If it said, I wish I let myself, then they would be their own barrier to the happiness. That would be their ultimate realization at that point, whenever they concluded that they could have let themselves be happy. What do you think about that? What does that mean about happiness itself to you?
Well, see, I always think about it. I mean, my first, just off the top of my head, first thought is like, wow, that's and it's another first world problem. It's another Western sort of European white culture almost,
like a privilege problem.
You're not.
Yeah.
When you say first
it's a
world,
privilege. It's a privilege, man. Yeah. I wish I'd let myself. Well, some people don't have the choice to let themselves, and they don't see life as the barrier to them is like food, water, shelter. The sort of hierarchy of needs. But nevertheless, that doesn't stop them being happy.
A lot of those people are very happy,
and you see it more. They're more happy because. Something stupid that's perhaps not so... My grandmother used to say to me, she was sort of like, they went through the Second World War in London and they were bombed and blitzed. There was Germans bombing them all the time. She said it was the best time of her life. She said, in a sort of a personal level, that everybody was like really bound together and things were simpler. It's not the fact they had a common enemy to fight, the Bosch, the Hun, whatever. It was that... things were honed down to a simplicity where they could just be happy. And so there was a lot of happiness and a lot of sadness, of course. It was extreme. But I never forget, and sort of my mum said that before the war and after the war, in the 50s, when they used to leave their front door open. Nobody stole anything because nobody had anything to steal, so they're all very poor. But so I always think it's like trying to put that in context of like, so which part of my life, my 80 years, didn't I let myself be happy? Is it a continuous thing, or are there just moments of I didn't let myself? Because I'm sort of erring to I didn't let myself. Because this is like first world expectations, the car, the new iPad, like you're talking about your friend with his Ford Mustang, or...
I think it's probably when we're talking about happiness in this context, I think we're talking about an overall general state of being. So, for example, I can be having, I'm generally a happy person. And I couldn't get a phone call with bad news, and that could be disappointing. That could even make me frustrated. But underneath it all, I'd still be happy. You know what I mean? So then it becomes more about, well, how did I let some of life's inconveniences get me away from that underlying state of peace or balance or serenity or equanimity that I generally have. What we find, I think, is that a lot of people feel like they got in the way of their own happiness because of the way they've chosen to define happiness itself. And as our definition of happiness evolves and we stop equating it with, the next great accomplishment or the next great acquisition or the next, next new female or partner or, when we stop equating it with these different, material gains or desires of the ego, and we start seeing that it's more of a state that's there underneath it all and waiting to be uncovered.
But see, I remember we talked about this before. I was saying to Wendell that it was like a real transient feeling. Happiness to me, my definition is like it's a momentary thing, and
you'd be talking more about excitement or elation. You know what I mean?
No, but my definition of happiness is like I don't think. I mean, you could look at a dictionary definition, but
and it said mental and emotional balance in the dictionary.
Oh, does it? I remember you said
See, I think it's...
Yeah, but most people wouldn't think of
that's the whole thing. And if we have this varying definition of happiness, then quickly we can get in the way of it by saying, well, happiness is only fleeting. Well, then you won't let yourself continuously be happy if you think it's only a fleeting thing. And you'll let the next disappointment actually get in the way of a general state of happiness that you could be experiencing because...
So what about this, Will? Did you think it might be the fact that happiness is another definition might be that you've got no worries, no bills to pay?
Well, this is interesting because you guys kind of naturally segue to where my mind went next, which is there's a few definitions of happiness that I've kind of picked up in my lifetime that I've held on to. One is happiness is not about having what you want, but wanting what you have.
No.
And when we think about have, not just in a physical, tangible, material sense, but in a totality sense.
Yeah.
Okay? Your existence is something that you have, okay, at a very minimal degree, which is the thing that we share in common with the people that we would say are in the third world, for example.
Yeah.
Okay? Then when we think about the textbook definition or the dictionary definition about a state of mental and emotional, balance, we think about happiness actually being synonymous with almost peace, right? And when we think about, and then I think about the yogic definition of happiness, because happiness isn't really something that's even talked about in yoga, right? What's talked about in yoga is a state of balance, a state of focus not on one thing, which is concentration, but on all things, which is meditation, right?
Yeah.
And it makes me think of the Dalai Lama, who when asked how it is that he meditates or how it is that he attains his peace, he says, they said, do you meditate for 5 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours? He says, no, I meditate one time a day for 24 hours. So, and he doesn't mean that he sits in a room and he's chanting all day long, because if you know anything about the Dalai Lama, he's incredibly busy. But rather that his entire state of awareness is a focus on all things, which brings him this mental and emotional balance, which causes him to be at peace, which therefore, the byproduct of which is the happiness.
Is that sort of mindfulness? They use that term a lot?
Yes, mindfulness is another way of thinking about it. But I guess for me, it's an amalgamation of all those things and seeing how, happiness is really just kind of like a trendy term for a more macrocosmic idea, which is harmony.
It's like, think about it. If we took that word happy out, because what she's saying, because it's a very trendy term, it's a very popular term, it's a very easy and simple to convey and pass on term, but with those come misinterpretations of its truth and of its message, like the word God even. You know what I mean? So we throw happy around and we don't necessarily know if that's what that means. But let's say we said, I wish that I let myself be more peaceful. well, then that's easier to understand in a way,
it is, yeah.
because we see that, peace is kind of already there, and maintaining our peace has a lot to do with how we respond to chaotic situations.
But someone could probably define peacefulness easier than happiness. I mean, I personally I know what peaceful is.
Right.
But happiness, that's complex.
So you see that when we actually, if we focus on the essence of happiness, which is really more about a state of being, then we kind of find that intuitively aligns us with taking a more balanced demeanor regardless of the situation. Not really, having so many expectations to the point where we run into constant disappointments, but more being one with the flow, one with the creation.
Yeah, and what you're saying is actually precisely right, and well, not precisely right by judgment, but it's in line with some things that I've been reading and other philosophies from the East, which is that when you're doing something from a place of peace, from a place of knowing your internal harmony, right, there's no need at that point to feel like you're acting with an intent. Okay, you don't have to worry about, I'm coming from a good place or I'm coming from a bad place, because harmony and peace is a all-encompassing state, right? So if you're acting from peace, then there's no need to worry your mind with intent, because when you act like peace, it's like breathing. There's only one flow, in and out.
So let's throw
so this is important because...
I was going to say so then you don't have to worry about disappointing people or yourself with whatever their reaction is, because you're coming from a place of peace. Sorry, that was just the...
Totally. And then and then with that, when you remove some of that intent, then you're not forcing the issue.
Yeah.
You're not trying to force happiness while you're still trying to discover what that truly means. You understand what I'm saying? You're not going around saying I'm happy, and hiding from personal problems just to promote a happy state without actually understanding the truth of that state of being really is.
See, we're being very let's throw a bit of spiritual stuff in, because we've been very earth-based in. Now, what about the role of like a karmic? Some people believe there's a karma, and I mean, what about the view that karmically you weren't entitled to be happy? I mean, does that would let's put it in a different framework. Would you're not letting yourself be happier because you can't let yourself be happier because you're paying your karmic debt.
Yeah,
I mean,
think about Ariel Castro. Ariel Castro he chose to take some women who were vulnerable,
young girls,
and he'd had them tied up in his basement and did whatever with them for years, right? And he's definitely, he's in jail. Oh no, he killed himself in jail. He killed himself in jail. Yeah. Clearly an indication of unhappiness, right? Now who took that away from him? Who took access to that balance away from him? I just killed Andrew's dying laughing right now.
I love that. He killed himself. Surely an indicator of unhappiness.
Absolutely.
I mean,
but who got in his way? Who got in his way? Who got in his way? Not those women. Those women didn't say, "Hey, Ariel, break the law and tie us up." No, he chose that. He chose that. And the only thing that truly makes you make a choice like that are the compulsions of your ego, the attachments, the desires of your ego. So if we're going to integrate a spiritual component to this conversation...
Let's do another little bit with him. Was he evil as well as...
Well, it surely would be that his ego got in the way of his own happiness. The choices that he made when aligned with his ego and those egotistical desires, the desires for power and control, to manipulate the life of another, to take away some of their energy, to do the things that he was doing.
So that's
all.
Nasty.
I like where you're going with this. Let's turn that on its head then, right? And let's take the two people that have cancer, for example, right? You take and this is actually, you take the individual who has cancer, that's been told they have cancer, who says, okay, well, I'm going to die. They've just accepted they're going to die. Yeah. They're going through the motions of the chemo and all that, but they've given up, if you will. And then you take the same individual who's been told they have cancer, who says, well, I'm still living, right? And they seem to have all this joy, and you think, well, you have cancer. How the hell can you be happy? But see, in that moment, you can say, well, the cancer is the karma, right? It's the part of their spiritual journey that they were supposed to encounter. But then that spirit has the moment where they can make a choice, which shows where their spirit is going in this lifetime and their growth and development. Are they going to say, I have cancer, bah humbug, F it all? Or are they going to say, well, I'm still living, let me cherish the time that I have, let me make the most of this, let me affect change and bring joy to myself and those around me, like so many do.
Yeah. And surely your perspective in the physical body is it's your ego. You see what I mean? And wherever you're aligned, that's totally what you vibrate. And what she's saying here reminds me of what some friends said to us. And they said that they heard this cool quote where the person said, find what you love and let it kill you.
Yeah.
Right? And they said they loved it. They loved that quote. They're both in their late 40s or early 50s or something. And I found it to be dark. I found it to be a little somber. I found it to be a little too glum for me. And they didn't see why. And I was like, it took me a while to express myself. But at the end of the day, I said, at the end of the day, I would live it. I would find what I loved and I would live it. I wouldn't let it kill me. There's a difference in the way that energy.
I sort of understand what they mean.
Yes, totally. I totally understand what they mean. But even in the slightest, the nuance, because we're talking about the nuances of the word happiness. We're talking about the nuances of, the value we attach to these words and then how they affect our psyches and whether or not we determine whether or not we're having a happy experience or a peaceful experience in our lives. You know what I mean? And if I'm going to let anything kill me, I'm more likely to suffer as a product of it. Look, people get taken advantage of because of the things they love all the time. You can let anything you love kill you, but you can live it and you be more conscious about your expenditure of energy. So you be more conscious about that efficiency.
Are you guys going to die with no regrets about letting yourself be happy? Are you letting yourself be happy?
Well,
I mean, just to sort of summarize
this
question.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to die with no regrets about it, because there was definitely a whole part of my life I lived before I realized, and there's definitely times still where I struggle with it and where I catch myself in a moment where I may be allowing myself to be unhappy for longer than is really necessary.
They're a shock to myself sometimes. Oh, I'm happy. I have those moments of awareness. Think, oh, I'm happy. Oh.
See, for me, it's like, shit, I'm not happy, and why is this the case?
Yeah.
Because if you think, and not to belabor it, but if you think about what most people want, they want to work for themselves. They want to do what they want to do. They want to have their own schedule. They don't want to necessarily have to do what someone else wants them to do. Even though it takes a lot of struggle to maintain yourself. And I have that. So ultimately, I should never be unhappy.
Yeah.
So what would you? I guess what would be our advice to prevent people from having this one idea as a regret? If you could say one piece of advice for each listener.
Well, for me personally,
how do you prevent yourself from having this regret?
Well, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Okay.
I wouldn't overthink. I would just try, and as I speak of myself, is that I just try and be in the flow, and then suddenly I have awareness that, I'm happy, so therefore I must have let myself be happy. And so I think the fact of overthinking sometimes is actually the thing that stops you, over analyzing the situation or your state of emotional thing. So I would just sort of forget about it. I know that sounds really bad, but you know what I mean? Just go with the flow.
The less you think about it, sometimes.
It's some of the things are so easy,
I would say I would totally agree with what you're saying, Drew, in that we can easily overthink it and make it more complicated and make it super heady for ourselves. But at its root, it doesn't involve any of the physical things you see around you. At its root, it involves the nature of your energetic connection to the universe around you. Yeah. And that's all energy-based. So kind of uncovering that purity would naturally lead you to that state of balance.
Cool.
Yeah, and I would just say, you're born happy. It's external things that make you unhappy. Just remember how you were born.
That's the best
bit
of advice.
So let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. Next one, number 4. The fourth most common regret of the dying is, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. And I think that's a really powerful one, because I see, as my life has evolved, I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm 29 years old, and all my friends are getting married. staying in touch with each other, especially if you're not living in the same states anymore, it can get very difficult, with how time-consuming work is and life changes. So what do you guys think about that?
I think, like I said to you, I think I'm more about quality than quantity. So there's been some specific people that I may not see for years at a time, but soon as I'm back with them, we just picked up where we left off. And so I do, those moments I have a realisation of regret. Oh my God, this is so cool. I haven't seen you for 5, 7, 10 years. Why not? This is so easy and cool. I forgot how natural we were. And so, yeah, I do regret that. But I think a lot of those are obviously early friends, from school, college, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they're sustainable to most people in the fact that you move around, you move jobs, you grow out and beyond. My daughter said to me, she was really gregarious, and sort of like really intelligent. And so she had a group of people around her. And they were like a little gang, but really into to life and doing things. And she was the one that was getting left behind because as she went on to do her PhD, she spent more time at uni and they left, got their degrees and various different things. They got boyfriends and married and started sort of like disseminating around the world, as it were, almost. That she was the one that was sort of left out. And now she's sort of like in London getting a new group of people around her. So I think it's a natural state of play that we regret, that we never had, that we still haven't got what we had when we were younger sometimes. And I suffer from that myself. When I was in bands and stuff. It was great times, but yeah, I do regret it sometimes. But I don't overly worry it because there's like I made you guys, you're my new friends, Like I said, you don't know how long it's going to last, but but I'm sure it will because we like got a sort of a spiritual bond here,
right.
which sort of surpasses everything. So yeah, I regret it, but I'm sort of looking forward to the next lot of friends in a way.
But that's the only way you can really get past that is if it is that you've outgrown some of the older relationships in one way or another.
Yeah.
And those relationships, reconnecting is not as.
But you can never beat
it,
those bonds of your younger years.
Yeah, but I think the thing that I saw the most there and that I noticed was that, or at least when I was little, was that a lot of people don't have. When you get into a hospice situation and you're dying, you're looking for those people, whatever part of your life are from, that actually know you, that actually you want to see you take your last breath. And so I think that then becomes something more profound. It becomes about kind of what you touched on, the people that you had a spiritual bond with that you just kind of let fall by the wayside. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm someone who, I grew up in Brooklyn, but I went to boarding school from a young age. And so I always had to kind of maintain a reach back to my friends. And now moving to Georgia from New York, it's similar. And I feel like it's always very important. And I think about like how it's important for me now to keep in touch with the people that I know really matter to me, because God forbid I end up in a hospice 25 years from now. Those are the people that I want to come see me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because I want them to say, well, she was a good friend to me. I think it's more about the type of friend that you are, and that reflects on how, of course it's a two-way street, but if you're not reaching out, how are they going to reach out to you?
So what about soulmate friends? Do you believe in that?
I think
postulating the question, but I do personally.
I think there's spiritual contracts. I think everyone in your life has a spiritual contract that you're supposed to fulfill, and I think that we kind of know who the people are that we have that connection with. Like you were saying, you have some friends you haven't seen for 5, 7, 10 years. Like I have a friend who I'm going to see at the end of this month who I haven't seen in 4 years. And we met when we were 15, and her parents are like my parents. I love her to death, and all that kind of stuff, and and I'm 29, so I can easily see how you could get to be 50 and have the same situation, and that 25 years has passed and you've seen him 3 times.
See, the crazy thing is like working sort of mediumistically, and people come to you, and like I always said to people, like it's hard to, the feeling of love you get around you is like it all feels pretty. Love is love, so the love of a family member, of a husband, wife, and a friend. often really feels sort of like deep family love and this connection you get back from the worlds beyond, as it were. Yeah, that feeling of friendship and love in that is such a special thing.
Well,
you
it's
know,
vital.
when it's connected. You know,
It's vital. It's vital to the health of organisms.
yeah.
It's vital to the growth of us as spiritual beings. It's vital to the flow of creative energy that comes through us. If you think about it, you know, mental and emotional balance is not guaranteed to anyone. And when things
What,
go,
you mean happiness?
yeah, and when it's there, but you have to access it, you have to uncover it, and you have to find ways to get there.
Yeah.
And friends help you. Friends help you to that. You see, like scientific studies show people with less than 6 close connections are 4 times less likely to fight off the viruses that cause the common cold.
You're kidding me.
So this is like literally, you know, the number of close connections that you have, close friendships that you have, determine in a lot of ways there's a correlation to the strength of your immune system, and this is literally your health at
Those
stake.
things worry me. Those stats.
because when you think about that and then you take that out, you disregard what I just said, and think about how you feel when you have no one to talk to when you run into a real life situation where you used to have a close friend that you could pick up the phone and call, or think about how just having your one significant other as your only source of, as your only sounding board can be not so healthy sometimes.
Yeah, for real.
Because, you know, you're so sensitive to the things they say, or you're so judgmental of their perspective because of how close and comfortable you are around them, or you don't take what they're saying objectively anymore because of your sensitivity towards them. It's no longer a subjective thing to you. You know, so that mixture of friends and having that close foundation is so crucial to maintaining the stability of consciousness that helps us to grow at a consistent and steady rate and not run into different self-imposed setbacks.
And you've got to have common ground as well. Hey, did you know something about me? I'm only a few chromosomes away from a cabbage.
Look at that. Congratulations, man. Cabbages have friends.
Cabbages have friends. That's what I said.
Cabbages have friends.
But I'm just sort of... But you know what I mean? It's like absolutely no point there. But I was just... just thinking, it's like when you sort of like these actions and consequences, you know, it's like finding your true friends is when you've like been in trouble or something. I've seen so many, and I guess especially with HIV and things like that. Yeah, I've noticed that with, you know, a few of my friends have, you know, you sort of thin them out when it really comes to shove.
Friends, things
like you're
happen.
talking about
friends
support.
Die, man.
Yeah.
Things happen.
I mean, absolutely physically
all
and mentally supporting you in your life, you know.
But you know, it's so common to lose friends. I think that what's very common when that happens is that we're so apprehensive about establishing new bonds.
But don't you think a lot of friends are just
reasons, seasons, lifetime?
Yeah,
What
like
do they call them?
we learn from one another. We have this purpose in each other's lives, and when that learning is done, we have the opportunity, the choice to kind of go our separate ways. I think that the healthiest thing to do, because things come and go in that way, is to always be open to establishing new and meaningful relationships with people. Even that like, organically, I'm talking about from a spiritual place, you know, an intuitive connection. Be open to that which feels right when it comes to meeting new people and establishing platonic relationships as you grow older. Otherwise, you know, you could find yourself wishing that you had done so.
Do you think a lot of people, I forgot the word, like, they're not so much friends but acquaintances? I've seen a lot of people that are calling these people friends. And
now more than ever. Now more than ever. Because it's such a social media statistic. The number of friends
I've got 300 friends, Facebook friends.
I think that, you know, friend, not to, you know, dissect it, but when we think about friend, we're really thinking about someone that we trust, someone that we're being open with, that we're sharing, you know, maybe not all of our deepest, darkest secrets with, but that we're being honest with. And a lot of times, I think what you're referring to in the social media friends or the acquaintance friends, they are, you know, they're friends for a certain purpose. So friends you go out with, friends you drink with, friends you...
So it sounds like friends have probably, over this generation, have been redefined somewhat.
Oh, I think they have been. I think the word friend has taken on a much more superficial meaning.
Yeah, for real,
And when we're talking about, you know, friends that are more like family, you know, we're talking about, you know, like my sister or like my cousin or like my whatever, you know. So
are you going to stay in touch with your friends, however you define them?
Well, how the ones that are close to me, the ones that I have a spiritual and meaningful connection with, the ones that grow with me, that are supportive of my endeavors, that help keep me in line and keep me disciplined and help keep me grounded, and take me back home when I need to go back home, and take me back to that time when I need to go. All those things, I'm definitely going to hold on to those things, because I can't remember every aspect of my life. I can't remember every moment in my life. And when I reach back with an old friend and they take me back to an old time, it brings back all those old feelings, and you begin to love the totality of your life even more.
For real.
So when people are looking for meaning, purpose, and value in their lives, know that so much of the potential in your life has been activated by the relationships that you've established with others.
So, dude, let's try and stay in touch, eh?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, any advice for anybody about how they could avoid that regret?
Advice? I don't know. I just think it's, again, I'm so easy. I think it's a natural flow. I think it doesn't take one to stay in touch. It takes two. Mm-hmm. And I think there's got to be some sort of parallel or some sort of connection and interplay in your life in order to stay in touch. But that doesn't take away from you the times you had a common place together, a sense of something that bound you together. But I think it's two to tango.
Yeah.
And you can do your best, but some people just don't want to stay. Or circumstances.
Yeah. And I'd say just don't, when you get that urge to reach out and call someone, send an email, call, do it.
Yeah.
I think too oftentimes we get the feeling and we don't do it, and that's where you start to build up that, I haven't called. It's like, when you want to call, actually call, and if they don't pick up, leave a message. They'll call you back.
Hey, we were going to go on to the next topic.
Yeah.
I want to ask something quickly.
What's that?
What do you think about staying friends with your exes? Ex-wives, boys and girls.
Well, that's like a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, I think we should probably do that separate podcast.
I was just suddenly thinking, what sort of friends are they? Yeah.
Boy,
anyway. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's a good topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's for another time. But let's move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so the number 3 regret of the dying is,
I wish I had the courage to express my true self.
okay. So that is the number 3 regret. I think that's an interesting one, because when people are dying, they have the time to reflect on who they have been. Again, this is something we touched on. A lot of our life is finite. And when we think about what's after this, we think about infinite. And so a lot of times we think about how do we bring the finite and the infinite together, right? But we use our eyes to look at the sky. The sky doesn't have an end. And so when these things come together, and we're realizing, like, who have we been, who will we be eternally, in the sense of who will we be remembered to be, we oftentimes realize that we haven't been ourselves. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's definitely, I kind of say I'm a little bit lucky. I'm pretty much of a free spirit, so more times than not, I've been myself. But there's definitely been times where I felt I needed to make myself fit a situation.
Okay, so I'm going to bring a bit of linear time perspective in here. Now, I think I've been many selves in my life. Through different phases. And as you get old, I'm 54, folks, that I can specifically, looking back now, as one gets older, you can see the signposts in your life so much easier. Like chunks of time, those 3 years, that time I was this. So what do you think about, once again, what is your true self? Do you think it's a momentary thing? Because, we grow, we create, and that's the whole being, is that we're on a venture in this life. So I'm trying to look for, rather than being an absolute, a true self. I've been my true self all my life. What about trying to redefine it in the sense of, what is the true self in this set of circumstances, in this piece of time, in this place? See, that would be easier for me to understand.
I mean, for people, everybody listening, one of the best ways to really understand your true self in a practical manner is that you're the work in progress. And so often are we quick to avoid some of the work that we still need to do on ourselves, or so quickly we're quick to kind of assume that we're healed, or that we know enough, or that there's no much more learning that we need to do when it comes to basic life skills and how we take care of ourselves, our emotions, our thoughts, our bodies, our spirits. We don't need any more help with that kind of stuff. But part of the true self, being your true self, is accepting yourself as you are, and the work that you have to do, and all the changes and the reinventions that come along with it, because all of us are in this state where we have this conflict between our ego and our higher self. And they have all these demands of the ego, and then you have all these ambitions and aspirations and connections of the higher self that are totally infinite and divine and pure and loving in nature. And so with this dynamic, in between, you have this conflicted self, the one that sees that money seems to be driving everything, but the one that knows in its heart that love is of paramount importance. You know what I mean? And so you when you have these different types of disconnects and dynamics, then sometimes your expressions are more in line with your ego. Other times your expressions are more in line with your spiritual self. But the more that you're integrating your understanding of both sides of your existence, the divine and the ego, the more you're actually participating in a holistic understanding of yourself and expressing your true self.
So do you guys play, what do I mean play at it? But I mean, what does that mean? I was trying to do you think you're being your true self, or do you think people play at it? What did I mean by that? It's like, let's try, that's what I was thinking. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud. I distracted myself. It's like, do you think a lot of people in the spiritual world and the complete diversity of things that one sees, all these different things you can do towards one's spiritual growth, etc. Do you think sometimes people just play at it, just?
Well, I think that
in the sense being dumb. Oh, I was told this, so this is my truth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that first of all, I think that there's a lot of different ways we can define true self, okay? And I think speaking to what you're saying about the different stages in your life when you were different selves, I think for me it's about being the fullest expression of who I am at a given moment without fear and influence of someone else, okay?
Because that's a big thing, isn't it? That's
and that doesn't, and that's good or bad, whether I'm making a good decision or a bad decision, that doesn't make me any less of being my true self in that moment, because my true self is that work in progress, so my true self may have messed up. Right. Do you see what I'm saying?
And that's it. So embracing that is the whole truth of it.
Yeah, and so I think when I look back on my different phases, and I think, and I think to myself, oh, I've been my true self this time, or that time I wasn't my true self. I think about the times when I wasn't expressing the true essence of who I was because of fear or influence of someone else. And a lot of those times usually had to do with money, as relating to being in law school, for example. A lot of those social situations, I felt rebellious because I felt like I was doing my best to be my true self, but even then I knew I needed to kind of dial it down.
Do you think there's you just triggered off an idea there. Do you think there's more than one true self? There's a financial, a material true self, emotional true self.
No.
Do you think they can be separated out?
I mean, I think that we can split our personality up into so many infinite number of parts.
But what I'm suggesting is that you cannot achieve your complete, utter true self. That's what I'm trying to say. Homogenized across your life.
This is what I'm saying. I guess this is what I'm saying is when we go that route. Remember, the words were, I wish I had the courage to express my true self, right? When we go that route, when we get past that blockage, there's so much that comes out. There's so much healing that happens when people let go, and they let go of the truth of how they feel or what they've been holding on to, what they've been hiding from or preventing from being shown to the world. And that is part of them. And that is their true self. So whether it be frustrations or anger or resentment or bitterness, and they want to tell everybody, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good.
That's not their true
That's
self.
not their true self.
That's right, yeah.
And so literally the point at which that person is expressing their true self, it could happen behind closed doors, or it could happen in front of people or in a group, but it's when they release the truth about all those underlying feelings.
See, and it's all getting away from your peer group, peer pressure as well. Perhaps that's
we
part of the courage. Is
but
to
not just peers. I
step
mean,
out of
anyone
your
that
life
can
group.
influence you. For me, my first experience really wasn't my peers, but it was my parents.
Yeah.
It was me speaking to my dad, having the courage to be a voice regarding, for example, gay people and his way of addressing that at that time, and being unafraid to tell him that I really disagreed with his viewpoint and his behavior. And that, and having the courage to express my true self, not just because I was questioning or whatever, but because that's exactly how I felt. Regardless of the fact that he was my dad and, he was my knight in shining armor. And, that's usually the last person a young girl, a teenage girl, wants to lock horns with. Yeah. Especially my dad. But, that's kind of when I think about, okay, in that moment, I was really my true self.
That's it. I mean, and you're expressing all of who you are in that moment, and that includes the learning that you've had in the past, you're learning at this moment. It includes all that. And whether or not your conclusion is false or not, it's all part of your learning process. It's all part of that growth process. It's so important for us to kind of express our true selves. Because otherwise we kind of become victim or jailed by our own self-imposed belief systems of how we should be. You know what I mean?
And I feel like, and you let me know what you think about this, but I feel oftentimes the place where we most readily abandon our true selves is in a romantic relationship.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, there is that, yeah.
And I mean, I can pinpoint the moment when in my first relationship with this young, when I was 17, I really liked this guy, and he said, "You don't smoke, do you?" And I was a young Cheech and Chong. And this guy, I said, "No, I don't smoke." And from that moment on, I couldn't be my true self for 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
2.5 years. I was living a double life as a teenager because I was ready to abandon my true self because I liked this person who wasn't really to accept me for who I was.
So how do you try and find or be your true self now? Does it take courage anymore?
Yes, it absolutely takes courage.
It
absolutely takes courage because in order for me to be my true self, I have to admit when I don't know something, when I'm wrong, when I'm hurt, when I'm sad, when I don't understand, when I need more time, when, all of those things is a part of expressing your true self. When I don't agree, even though I really want to agree, just so that there's no conflict. That all takes courage, I think.
What about you, Wendell? I mean, just point people out. You two guys are partners.
Yeah.
I think we
no.
That. I mean, so are you just trying to please Wilder all the time and not being your true self, like she said?
No, it's true. It's
No, I mean, my expression of my true self has literally nothing to do with Wilder, and sometimes that's to a fault.
Very individual, very strong.
Sometimes it's totally to a fault, and sometimes the things that I say or the way I say them while I'm being my true self are totally, not really sensitive to the way that she may feel at a given time. You know what I mean? And that's part of my journey, but I'm totally committed to being my true self. You see.
You are.
So many times people are quick to demonize their egos, but that's an integral part of your true self.
Yeah.
You see, in this life, I'm Wendell Matthews, and I have to own that as part of my truth. That has to be healing for me. That can't be a bad thing for me. You see, I can't see that as arrogance. That has to be part of my humility, that I have an ego, I have a physical body, so I can manifest.
Yeah.
But part of my true self is understanding my divine. And understanding that all that's greater than me. So it's really merging my physical position with my spiritual position and expressing them both in tandem. And as well as the different learning journeys that I have to go through by experiencing that dynamic each day of my waking life.
And you know what I have to say, just to piggyback off of that, since you did kind of call us out about being in a relationship. I think right now what I've recognized is that my truest self-expression is the most peaceful expression that I can find in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working towards. So and that takes courage because I'm very fiery in my nature, and I have a very free spirit, almost like a wild Mustang. So in a sense, you know, I have to tame myself. And in that way, my truest self at this point that I'm working towards expressing is really a peaceful self.
Yeah.
And it's the influence of the outside and my own allowing myself to allow certain emotions to come up and not necessarily pass, but be directed, that prevent me from being my truest self, which is a peaceful person.
You scare me sometimes, Awilna.
Why?
Just like like what you're saying, you're such a bit of a maverick, and you got such an energy about you. You know, you're like, you're not in stature, but you're like, oh my God, you're like a wind blowing. But I just wanted to, I was just really thinking, I think because I'm so close to actually being a cabbage, chromosomally, there's such a word, that I think I've kept it. And I just thought earlier, I think the act of being my true self is my true self is in the act of trying to be my true self. And I think the
That's
act
it.
of trying
Process. It's the process.
is the process. And I think, and I'm always a total believer in that. I don't think we actually ever achieved that per se. The act of doing it is the growth, the creative growth in us. So.
You know, like my for example, my father, he has narcissistic tendencies. He'll hide his ailments.
Yeah.
He'll pretend that things took less time than they did to do them. He'll pretend that things are easier than they actually are.
Or that
you understand what I'm
them.
saying? Or that he did them when he actually had a helper do 80% of the work. You know what I'm saying? And these different things, for somebody to be as intelligent as he is, he's an inventor, multiple inventions.
That's amazing.
You start to see that the power of the ego without any regard for our spiritual component. It makes it so that we aren't able to express our true selves. We're not able to moderate our behavior or our sense of self. We're not able to bring some balance to that perspective. And we are likely to lie for no reason almost and make stuff up and operate under false pretenses to keep up a particular image, its reputation, its persona. You know what I mean? So if that's all you identify with, you'll totally have a problem accepting the truth of yourself. As soon as you do accept the truth of yourself, you'll find so much more healing and peaceful humility. But
dude, it might be one of those things, if you tell yourself something enough times, you'll be that. You know, like vis-a-vis, like your father. Yeah, I did that. You know, and so, this projecting this strong, all omnipresent, capable guy. I mean,
my
question
I don't know. Is, and this is not speaking to his dad, but my question is, when you're doing that, right? We could say, well, you're using positive manifestation. Like I said, I'm going to be a lawyer from the time I was little, and I got into law school.
Yeah.
And I only got into one. I applied to 15, and I was like, well, I said I was going to do this, right?
15.
Yeah. But this is the thing. When you're co-creating something that's going to have a positive effect that will make you a resource to others, that's one thing. When you're co-creating a delusional state of being for yourself that doesn't help anyone, that's something totally different.
Yeah.
So I don't know if telling yourself that you did something that you actually didn't do is actually going to get you to the place where you actually change history and you did it.
It has to come from a place of meaning and understanding, and it has to be something that's totally rational.
It's got to be real.
You have to be able to
I'm telling myself I'm
rationalize some of
beautiful
this
every day,
intuitive.
mate.
Right. It has to be.
Look at me. Every day I tell me I'm beautiful.
Or else if you don't understand the truth of it, if you don't understand the true essence of beauty itself, telling yourself you're beautiful all the time will have no bearing. So once a really attractive guy says you're ugly.
Are you saying to me I'm not beautiful?
Oh, you, my friend, are more than beautiful. You are stunning.
What would you guys give as like a one sentence little tip if someone was like worried about their
having
true
the courage
self?
to express their true self?
Yeah.
What would you say, Andrew?
Oh, it's just simple. I just think it's the act of trying. It's the act of
just try to be your true self.
Pulling yourself up.
Be aware of it.
Yeah, there's a courage in a positive action is always harder than a negative action. It takes effort, and I think the effort is the courage.
Yeah,
I'd say
in a way.
I'd say, and I think definitely it's the process. It's definitely the effort. The effort. Where you apply that effort, apply it to listening. Apply it to listening to the inner voice. Apply it to listening to your guilty conscience. Apply it to listening to those things that guide you to the truth that's within that you may avoid saying to other people for fear of being too vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because this is the space where you actually find your true power, where you actually overcome the part of you that blocks your growth, and where you actually have the courage to express your true self.
Yeah, I mean, I actually agree with both of you. My one sentence would be, don't be afraid to be free.
Yeah.
When you let the fear go, you can actually be free. You'll care so much less about what other people think when you just buy that loud pair of pink pants and wear them. You'll be happy.
Andrew,
You'll be at peace.
You've been down my wardrobe.
No, just buy the pants. And
No,
damn whoever has a problem with it, because you're happy.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. Very
Hey,
cool.
okay, so last one, second to last one is that
Second to
I wish I hadn't worked so hard. See, that's a double-edged sword again, because would a miner or someone who toils a field wish they hadn't worked so hard?
See, I think the hard is left there to interpretation. I don't think they mean hard as in physical, because a farmer who loves his job wouldn't say he's working hard.
Right.
He would say it's not easy work, but he loves his work, right?
And he wouldn't wish that he didn't do it.
Yeah, I think that the hard here is in a reference to a unreciprocated working.
Yeah.
A working that is done, and this is just an example, at an office. Let's say you're a secretary for 25 years, or you're an office manager, and you don't have any particular connection with the company or the people, but you do your job, you go, you do overtime and everything, but you don't have any meaning from this job. You spend 90% of your time there during the week, but it really means nothing to you. I think that that's working hard. You're doing something that isn't really fulfilling you. It isn't really bringing you any joy. It's just giving you money.
But once again, the word has got multiple meanings, because there's something, we got common ground. We're all trying to make our way as spiritual people. We're trying to integrate, trying to give of ourselves into the community, etc. And we all know that it's actually hard work and hard effort. And although we do work clever as well, I mean, to work hard can infer working stupid, or you could do it better, but
inefficiently, perhaps.
Inefficient. But in this sense, I think that common ground is that we're pretty much in a similar place of what we're trying to build a business and build this life. It's hard work. So
but sociologically speaking, that's exactly what's promoted.
Yeah.
Hard work is what brings success.
So I don't regret
and everybody's
this.
looking for good work ethic,
Yeah.
hard work ethic.
Yeah.
This is the thing. It's not. I don't know if the crux of it is really in the word hard, as much as it is in the word so. Because see, it didn't say I wish I hadn't worked hard. It's about the so part.
So hard.
So maybe I worked a little too hard. In retrospect, I've worked a little
that's
more
diminishing
than
returns.
This is what I'm saying, right? What she's talking about. It's all about efficiency. It's all about what's being reciprocated. Whether or not you're gaining from what you're losing. Whether or not when you give, you're receiving. So the so has to do with whether or not inefficiency is healthy. And any business or any person or any animal will tell you that inefficient operations will lead to its self-destruction. Yeah. It will die. It will die much faster, rapidly. It would just end. Yeah. You see what I mean? If two people are in a relationship and they're taking from one another and nobody's gaining, that's inefficient and it will end. Yeah. That's just the way it is.
And I'm sure that this goes across lines, like if from the banker to the teacher to the factory worker, they all get in a position where they have to sacrifice life events to earn more money. So if you think about the lawyer or the doctor or the laborer who takes that extra shift just because they think maybe that $500, $1,000, $5,000 is going to make that more of a difference that year, and they miss their kid's recital, or they miss the first step, or they miss whatever, and then that money goes and comes and they still don't have that memory, and that money didn't necessarily bring them that much joy.
See, is this also referring back to previous regrets?
That's
it's like,
that's
I wish I'd
thing.
spent time with my friends.
This is what I'm
I
saying.
wish I'd spent time on myself, finding my true self.
When you think about these things,
I mean, because that's sort of just.
I think so too. Yeah.
If you think about it, if you get in the way of your own happiness, you have to work so much harder each day to be in good mood. Otherwise, think about how draining it is to be unhappy all day. Think about how little production comes from a depressed day. And then think about how much more work you'll have for yourself the next day, right? So just by getting in the way of your own happiness, surely you'll find yourself in a state of inefficiency where you're working too hard,
yeah.
right? If you don't stay in touch with your friends, you don't have the support that you could potentially have when it comes to finding future opportunities for investment or potential revenue or profit generation, or just having positive experiences, or having people there emotionally to support you, not just resource-wise. But if you don't have that connection with your friends, you will have to work harder to provide all that support, assistance, resources on your own, right? If you don't have the courage to express your true self, you run into blockages with the flow of creativity in your spiritual body and in your physical body. And again, you'll have to work harder to just perform each day.
So what can we agree on then? Because this seems a simpler question, because I think we've answered this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
Well, I think in order to avoid it, you got to put your values in the right place. You got to prioritize your values appropriately and understand that life is much more relationship-based than it is material-based. And relationships are all about energetic connections. And so how are you participating energetically in the universe around you? The more you do that, the more you're participating in oneness, the more efficiently you're operating.
What about you, Will?
I think it has to do with people kind of changing in their mind what they think of as sacrifice. Because people think, oh, you have to sacrifice to be successful. But what are you sacrificing? Are you sacrificing the meaningful moments with your family that like you will reflect on when you're in the hospice bed dying? Or are you sacrificing some money that you know, that will make it so that you can't get that new car, but you actually have the meaningful memories? So I think, you know, people have to be willing to let go of these antiquated ideas of what it means to be successful.
So for me, I just think this question, I wish I hadn't worked so hard, just really calls back to the other questions. Yeah. It's really sort of encapsulated. I wish I'd been true to myself. I wish I had better friends. I wish I'd have... So I think for me, it just simply infers that.
Getting out of our own way.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our number one top regret. And that is, I wish I'd had the courage to follow my dreams instead of living a life of what others expected of me. So again, I wish I had the courage to follow my dreams instead of doing what others expected of me.
See, I don't think that's the number one, dude. I think the number one regret is I wish I'd never actually died. You know, my number one regret, like, I wish I hadn't died.
See, I think that, you know, it's kind of like you kind of knew this was coming. But, you know, I wish I hadn't worked so hard kind of presupposes, like, I wish I had done what I wanted to do as opposed to what everyone else wanted me to do. And I think that the cool thing about the number one regret is that that's what I remember the most about my experience at Bailey House as a 7-8-year-old, you know, is that all of the people there, the joy that they had from living in the moment, from being aware of all these things in the winding down of their time during this lifetime, was that they all were doing what they wanted to do. They were being their true selves. They were taking it easy. They were doing what they needed to do. And when I say take it easy, I don't mean being lazy, but rather they weren't putting, you know, because part of that working hard is the stress that comes with, oh, I got to get this done. I got to get this done now. And when you're doing things for other people, it's the stress of pleasing them, of not disappointing them. And so I think that, you know, really understanding what it is that you want to do, and again, when you understand sacrifice and the fact that it takes sacrifice to be your true self, because you have to be courage and you have to sacrifice fear. Yeah. But fear is the one thing that we should all be willing to sacrifice, because it's like, who needs that?
Who needs that? See, it all just sort of says to me, these are all these questions really say to me is like, I wish I'd been myself, followed my heart, followed my dream, been true to myself, kept with my friends, family, the people that really matter around me, and there's nothing else that matters more than family, friends, and loved ones. And so I guess these are sort of aspirations of the human condition, aren't they? Is that...
well, yeah, that's...
You know, and I think it's based on our own mortality as well. If you look into these questions, they're all sort of like...
how we measure
awareness
our
of
lives.
awareness of death. Actually, this
us-
as an individual, I hope I did my best.
That's it.
I hope I somehow had some sort of completion or some handshaking with my own spirit.
That's exactly what I was.
It's a big question.
No, that's what it takes me to. It takes me to what is the common thread that links all of our dreams. Why? How can we talk about this in a context that it resonates with everybody? Well, what are your dreams? Your dreams are the memories that you want your future. The dreams are what you want the future memory of your life to be. That's what
What's
everybody,
eternal? It's the infinite of your finite being.
That's it. Everybody's dreams, whatever we really dream. I'm not talking about your nightly dream, your grander dreams
your
for
vision.
yourself, your vision. It's all about what you want the memory of your life to be. And so that's so not about anyone else, though it may include service to others, though it may include growing with humanity. At the end of the day, that memory is yours and yours only. That life review is yours and yours only. And so what do you want your memory to be? Because what society expects of you is to be competitive. What society expects from you is to gain at the expense of another. What society expects of you is to pay your taxes, to pay your bills on time, to have a child, you know what I mean, to raise them. You see? So if you go and measure yourself only by what society's expectations are, and you hit all those points, you'll lose meaning and purpose if your focus is not on what you want the memory of your life to be.
See,
and there's so many people, I run into it so many times in my own life, where people say, "Oh, Wendell, you should be a lawyer," or "Wendell, you should go to business school," or "Wendell, you should do this, you should do that." But everything I wanted to do was so much more creative. Everything I wanted to do was so much more passion-oriented and love-oriented and exploration-oriented and discovery-oriented, and not this left brain stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And when I decided to do what they expected of me, I lost. I became disconnected from my creativity. I became disconnected from my true self. I became disconnected from meaning and purpose and what I truly valued. And I surely became disconnected from my vision for myself, what I wanted my memory to be, the memory of my life. It started changing, and it started becoming something I didn't want. And you can always take that back. You can always take that back.
See, here's an interesting thing. That I don't know what's wrong with my head, but but you know, my first thing, I always like when there's these questions of self, I always have to sort of like pull myself out of myself and put it somewhere else, because I find it uncomfortable. Because what I'm going to say is like, what do you think? This is our first world dream, maybe. You know, the society, culture, you know, where we live and how we've been brought up. But I wonder what like a guy or a girl in Mongolia living in a yurt on the plains thinks. What is their dream?
Well, actually, it's
someone
interesting
in India,
you should
in a
say
village,
that,
you know what I
because
mean? What?
it's interesting you say that. The woman who won Oscar this year for Best Supporting Actress from 12 Years a Slave.
I never saw that.
Her name is Lupita. I'm going to massacre her last name, so I'm not going to do her the disservice. But she was from like a rural African village, okay? And she always dreamt of something more, of being something more, someone more.
I gotcha, I know her.
Okay?
Yeah.
And now she is an Oscar-winning actress from her first major film.
So
you think of someone like Liberace.
Yeah.
Or say, let's go even
got
beyond
all
that.
these
Mahatma Gandhi, okay? He was in rural
Martin Luther
India.
King,
But you're saying let's look third world. Mahatma Gandhi
Well, the
was
rest
in,
of the world, not just
imperialist British colony of a country of India.
Thanks.
He, sorry, it's your history, not mine. He just saw and dreamt of something better for the people of his land. He dreamt of something more harmony, of more community, of them being able to rule over themselves, which is the greatest dream.
Is that what society expected of him?
No. And was that, was he influenced by his environment? Yes, but was it a first world dream? Definitely not.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we can't dare think of what someone else's dreams are, because even in that thought, it's limiting.
Yeah.
Is kind of like what I'm feeling. And so like we can, Genghis Khan, for example, that dude was born in a yurt, and he dreamt of being the most powerful man in the
Yeah.
world.
They reckon he massacred either 60 to 80
Well,
million
you know, his motives and his
Yeah.
methods were,
Yeah, but it's still a dream.
you know, but exactly.
Yeah.
And so and he was his true self.
See,
You
what
know,
about this
there's-
other idea of like exclusivity of your own dream? Is sort of like, do you think others suffer? Not you personally, but one tries to achieve one's dream, whatever it may be, right? But do you think there's casualties around you that support you in your dream, but they're actually a casualty of your dream, i.e. they don't get to do theirs? And I'm just thinking about my wife, you know, at the moment she's aiding and abetting me in my dream to the detriment of her own dream. I mean, how
much of you being successful is a part of her dream?
That's
You know, that might be a part
Well,
of her
in the
dream.
arena- as my wife,
yeah.
and-
But
yeah,
in
that's
the
what-
But
arena
not
that
just
you're
as a
becoming-
wife, as a spirit, you know, as your
as a
spiritual companion.
Correct.
Yeah, for real.
Because
Yeah.
then, as you gain success and notoriety here, it
Yeah.
only makes her dreams for herself become more and more real. You know what I mean? Because she has it easier and easier in.
See, but
you know?
I'm gathering guilt around me because of that. You know, it's
Well, that's-
adjusting my behaviour sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered because you two are partners. You know,
No,
I just
and
wondered,
I can relate to that because.
but you both seem to be living your dreams. You know, you're attempting, both of you, individually and together.
But it's, you know, it's not easy. There's
No,
definitely
no. there's
many mornings when,
Yeah.
you know, I say to him somewhat tearfully,
Yeah, get out.
you know, should I hang it all up and get a, you know, go
See, that's
work
been
at
my
Foot
week.
Locker
That's
or
my week.
whatever,
do what
you know?
society
That's
expects
my
of
week,
me.
yeah.
And the truth that we always come back to, you know, regardless of whatever momentary struggle we may
Yeah.
encounter, is that wouldn't be the best thing for either of us.
That wouldn't be
that's-
her true self.
Yeah. So that takes courage.
Society
That takes
expects
a
that's the
lot of
whole
courage.
thing. Society expects her
Yeah.
to take the bar in Georgia,
Yeah.
become a lawyer here because she got her law degree.
Yeah.
That's what society expects. Society expected her to get a law degree or some sort of secondary degree of some sort because she went to Wesleyan. You know what I mean? Society expected
see.
her to do
Okay.
this. She was on that train. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? And if you're listening and you find that you're doing what society expects of you, don't judge yourself. Don't feel bad.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
pressures are super real.
The truth is, I was expected to go to Harvard, and I disappointed a lot of people by not even applying, applying early decision to Wesleyan.
See, that's
And
disappointed me.
And
hearing
so
that.
the thing is, like, if you allow yourself to be governed by what everyone else wants for you, you know, you're just gonna come back to that number 5. Regret,
wish I'd let myself
I wish
be
I'd let
happier.
myself be happier because you're allowing yourself with the influence and the fear that's being driven by society around you to dictate what you want. I've honestly never been happier in my life than when I did what I wanted. When I went to boarding school, even though no one else was going to boarding school, I was happy.
Yeah.
When I played squash, even though no other black person knows what the hell that is, I was very happy. When I decided to move to Georgia and leave New
Yeah.
York, you know, I was happy because I was following my heart. When I decided to do spiritual work and commit myself to that, I became even more happy because I received validation that I was actually helping people. And finally, after investing $160,000 in education aimed at helping people, I was able to help people with something that I was genetically predisposed to and given by my grandparents as a child. That cost me nothing.
Yeah. So I'm just worrying, I'm just, the thing that keeps going through my head about the exclusivity of your own dream is like, because we're in relationships with people, and yet somehow it seems a selfish act sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I'm sort of
Yeah.
trying to see
But
good
what-
and
but-
bad
but-
about
but
it.
this-
Yeah.
this is
Oh,
the thing.
yeah, I'm living my dream, you know. Yeah, you
play-
go to work. Or,
But whatever you do, when you try to manifest your dream, it inevitably affects the environment around
Yeah.
you in some way, ripple effects everywhere.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, your dream, you know, is not selfish. You see what I mean? Like fundamentally, there are consequences associated with it, and the higher and more for the service and benefit of everyone your dream is, the more consistent with oneness that your existence becomes. It becomes because I mean, it's where
therefore you can become more complete. You're more lovable and loving, and you're more obtainable to others.
Yeah, a lot of people our age are embracing that idea that everyone can live their dream. Like we have a friend, they just got married. This couple, Jess and Willie. Willie is an aspiring film director. He shoots movies all over the world. He's gone 6-7 months at a time, and Jess is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was her dream, to go and do law and first go through the corporate and then come back and do the nonprofit. And so they're both living out their dream. But, she spent the last 6 weeks holed up in a hotel in New Jersey. He's, been in and out of the country from Italy to Lebanon to here and there.
Sounds good.
But the thing is, they love each other so much. They understand each other. They support each other. There's nothing more that would make them happier than to be supporting and spiritually companions and through all of this, because ultimately they want each other to live their greatest good and be their greatest potential. Neither of them wants to hold each other back. They say, we're with each other because we want to be, not because we have to be.
Wow. Society, so you should have had a choir behind you when you said that.
Society's expectations for you, where do they come from? They come from society wanting a particular future for you, and your level of participating, contributing to the way the entire engine works, the entire machine moves. You see what I mean?
Government.
So if everybody was disconnected, if everybody was checking out, right, of the labor pool, our economy wouldn't look the same.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Society has certain expectations of you, and they're not necessarily always consistent with the truth that's in your heart. Here's an example of what I'm trying. When we follow society's expectations and we sign up for a particular lifestyle because of what they expected, so that we don't run into the different insecurities, about not having health care or about not having enough disposable income, because we like to know that we're going to have a check each week or each month or whatever. If we go the route of more insecurity, we're worried about not making any money. Yeah. We're worried about not having those same things that we were able to have from our employer. But here's a guy who quit his job after working corporate for about 8-9 years. And he couldn't do it anymore because he was doing what was expected of him. And he actually had a dream. He was a writer. He was a screenwriter. And I met him when he was 35, right after he wrote Independence Day.
Oh, wow.
Independence Day made so much money, dude. And he wrote it. Yeah. And the thing was that, and if it wasn't Independence Day, it was a movie on that scale. And it had just dropped. He came and he said it was his first screenplay that he wrote to completion. You understand?
Yeah,
Let it out.
Let it out. Just
let it out. Or else, if you keep following what society expected of you, it'll stay in there. And it won't leave. It's your gift. You were supposed to give it. So when you find yourself 84, 85, 92, 93, 108 years old and you still didn't let it out, you'll be holding on to it, wishing that you did.
So let's try and wrap this up. Let's try and imagine ourselves on our deathbed, right, and encapsulate all these 5 things, right? So how would you want to be? I know it's a difficult question. How would you want to feel on your deathbed? Somebody came to you and you're lying in bed. Let's say you're having a really pleasant death, as it were. What would you want to be able to say to someone if they asked you about your life? What would satisfy you? It's a difficult question because I don't know the answer myself. But
I would want to say that I lost count of how many lives I improved. And I'm so thrilled about it. I can die today, and if they don't want me to come today, I'll come tomorrow, and if they want me to come tomorrow, I'll come whenever I'm supposed to. But so I'm good.
I mean, immediately the thing I started thinking about was just not what I would say, but what I would want to know. I would want to just know that I helped people. I'd want to know that what I did positively helped at least a handful of people's lives, and not in the superficial way, but in the meaningful way. Not to say that they they think about me 20 years later or anything like that, but that in that moment where they needed it and we found each other, I was able to provide it.
See, my classic one is just like simple. I just want to be on my deathbed and owe so much money on my credit card. I mean, it's really you know, I think, F you. I got, well, you know.
See, if we're talking about
Send
finances,
me my credit report in heaven. Just
that's right.
mail the credit report to God, dude.
Yeah.
See, no, if we're thinking about that level, I've always thought, this is something that if you ask people that have known me when I was like 12, they'll tell you this is still the same. I also want to be able to leave something behind with my legacy. So whether it's a building with my name on it,
wow,
or a scholarship with my name on it, or something, you know, like that, where it's going to keep helping people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, because, you know, my whole thing that I'm learning is this is all about the finite reaching the infinite, right? So, we know when we got to the paramount regret of the dying, we're thinking about what are the memories that they wanted their life to be looking back on it. And when I look back on it, I want to know that I'll still be looking down and new things will be happening because of whatever I did to help people.
Yeah.
So people will still be learning in my building or sleeping in my dorm or whatever. You know, and this is just a kid from the projects. You know, you have to understand, I grew up in Van Dyke projects named after a Dutch guy. You know, surrounded by people who would call me white, even though I was darker than some of them because of how I talked. So for me, legacy,
same thing with me.
you know, legacy and your memory is something so much bigger than just, you know, even the handful of people I'll help. It's about beyond me. Because because it's so many people that came before us that, you know, it's beyond them and now it's me. It's my turn.
I mean, and that's kind of like your immeasurable nature. And so when every time we try to measure ourselves, especially by society's metrics, we're limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
And the more we align ourselves with the full scope, the infinite nature, the boundless nature of our dreams and aspirations, the more we're operating in our greatest of powers, the more we're operating in our limitless space. You know what I mean? Where we end up having an immeasurable impact on society. If I improve the lives of countless people, they take that same new state of being and they pass it on.
We never know who we touch.
And you don't know. You don't know. That's why we're doing this podcast. Because we don't know any of the people who are going to be listening. Yeah. But we know if they take something good from it, they'll pass it on to their children. And we'll have a multi-generational effect on life itself.
That's what the ancient people say, that what you do is felt not now, but in 7 generations from now.
7 generations. Well, let's wrap this up. Because,
so I guess how do we get people to avoid number one? How do you avoid wishing that you followed your dreams instead of doing what society expected of you? How do you avoid it? What would be your advice, your words of wisdom?
You're asking.
Love the people, man. Wisdom is love. Give it to them.
Do you know what? I just wish the whole, how I react to that. I just wish I could sing.
Yeah.
Because there must be a song, and I've got tons in my head that I could just sing to you, you know, right now, and because I can't put it into a sentence.
Name one of them, because they can go and listen to it, and maybe that'll capture it.
What song comes to mind?
Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash.
Yeah. See, for me, it's Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been listening to tons of that lately. Do you know my greatest song of all time is like Marvin Gaye?
No music.
Yeah, What's Going On? What's going on?
Yeah.
That is my leader. That's always in my mind. The words and the compassion at that time.
And it always brings you back to following your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
My advice, because it's so big, because society's pressures and expectations are so serious, because money is so valuable in physical reality, the way that we've created things. My most helpful advice would be to get quiet. Get very quiet. Because the more quiet you are, the more you can listen to your heart.
That's right.
The more you can hear that inner voice, and the more you can hear the truth of yourself, as opposed to the expectations that are dominating your ego.
Shine on you.
And so it really becomes a process of quieting the noise so you can hear your true essence, so you can connect with that.
Yeah, and then I just piggyback on that. You know, once you've done that, then don't be afraid to just let yourself, like the song says, to shine on, to shine out, to to be whomever it is that you are in your truest self, because that'll never lead you astray.
There's a lot to think about here. I'm certainly going to be brave, have the courage, and put on my pink pants.
My pink
pants, man. And this stuff always blows my mind because I don't think there's an answer.
No.
Yeah.
I really don't. There is no simple answer to these questions. But
That's
anyway,
all part of the journey. Each journey provides us with answers to these questions. And can you count all the journeys?
I think it provides us with another question.
That's it. And then it opens up more questions.
Yeah.
But that's the lotus. That's the beauty of it.
So come on, let's have your website.
Okay, well.
Come on, Chase.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Andrew and Wendell. It was such a pleasure. If you guys want to know more about me, you can feel free to check me out on the web at www.awildarivera.com. That's AWILDARIVERA.com.
And you can check me out at wendellmatthews.com. That's WENDELMATTHEWS. And you can check out my blog. It's Words of Inspiration. And keep an eye out for the book that I have coming called Think With Your Heart.
And mine's I'm nearly a cabbage.com. no, it's Andrew. What is mine? Andrew Grant. www.andrewgrant or grantmedium.com, all one word. And it's been a great pleasure because I love it when these conversations do my head in, as we say in England. It's like fried me, and there's so much to think about. But actually, it's sort of very motivational at the same time because, to think out loud and to hear from, like, you guys are so switched on. It just thinks, okay, come on. Never mind the worries of the day and the bills and this. Yeah, there's a higher function here. Yeah. And the higher function will actually negate all those other silly little issues we have. So, see you later, Wilder.
See you.
Yeah.
See you. Thanks for listening.
Take care.
Take care.
High five. Come on.
Five.
Come on, let's have a bit of energy. For Christ's sake.
All right.
You're missing an arm.
I can't whistle like you.
Yeah, I'm always missing an arm.
Whistling Dixie over here.